So this chapter opens up with us seeing the continuation to the conversation that was actually happening at the end of chapter 335 between Dabi and All For One. And here Dabi's like, but if they're exposed, won't it become a problem for us? Like All For One's connections. And All For One says, not at all. What do you do with a cheap lighter when it stops work? If he fails, I might be a little disappointed, but in that case, we'll just have to move him aside and go about the next possible route we can take. And that further makes me think of the possibility of there being more than one traitor besides Aoyama. I'm not saying it's absolutely guaranteed, especially not because of my Nezu theory, nor because I need that to be true. That's not the case. If there is another traitor, it doesn't necessarily have to be Nezu. I just want to get that out of the way. Back at the end of 335, All For One says, when I find myself with a goal, I'm sure to plan out a number of routes to the goal, shall we say. To be exact, I weave my plots years or even decades prior so that I may employ a viable route when the time comes, a route that inevitably achieves my ends. Then we see like this grid representing his plan, and aside from it like aesthetically representing All For One's like cyberpunkiness that he tends to have from time to time with various aspects of him, whether it be in like the Vestige world or one of his quirks having this aesthetic to it. But there's like these 6 little lit up plots here, like these circles that look like waypoints in a video game or something. Now, either the number 6 here can just be random from Horikoshi, and this is just how he decided to depict it for no significant reason, or this could be the madman showing us the exact number of plots or routes that he's set up over the years. So I guess the start here would be just him initially getting All For One and him constructing his plan, and then the ending plot here, I'm assuming, is him having One For All, therefore omnipotence. But then we see these 4 little plots in between it, all looking like they're happening at one point in the future after another. And just off the top of my head, the rough timeline that I have here of All For One's plan to where we are now, this first one could be maybe him getting Gigantomachia as like his henchman possibly. But first, this video is sponsored by Gemstone Legends. Wait, guys, this is a special sponsorship. It's not normal like the other ones, because there's an incredible contest for new users. And if you keep watching until the end, I'll tell you about it. But I personally play Gemstone Legends to like unwind and just chillax. I like to go into that idle zone from time to time, you know? It's just something fun that I can come back to several times a day. I mean, I personally sneak in a few sessions whenever I'm riding an Uber. It's also pretty easy, which is nice because I'm not good at mobile games, and it has a great tutorial and it's very engaging. Once you finish the tutorial, you will automatically get an awesome starter package, and it includes Moralia, an amazing healer that will help you through the whole game and give you a quick and easier start. The potions, gems, and money also let you climb easier and faster. Do not miss this chance, guys. By the way, remember that special contest that I was talking about earlier? Well, it turns out that if you get the highest score of all of the competitors in this contest, you can win your choice of an iPhone 13 Pro or a Samsung Galaxy S21. You could also win smaller prizes like Google Play or Apple Store gift cards. So please remember to download Gemstone Legends. You have links in the description, you have a QR code in the top right corner. You can also win an iPhone 13 Pro. Guys, this game is so easy, you can also play with me in it. Thanks again. Because at least in my opinion, in that flashback that we see of him and Yoichi that Izuku initially sees, there's like that guy with the dreads that grabs him. And he's like, careful with my brother, he's weak or whatever. But then he also says, now that I've become famous, I need a bodyguard. And I thought it was interesting that that sequence played out the way that it did, and with us seeing that guy. And since we now know everything about Gigantomachia and how he has multiple quirks, it's also possible he might have like a longevity quirk too, or that's just inherent to the Nomu mixture that Yujiko put into him. And speaking of Yujiko, he might be the next waypoint here, because obviously All For One meeting him was the most significant thing to happen to his plan, aside from just having All For One itself, I guess, right? And it goes without being said, but you know, it also has to be brought up again that like All For One did didn't always know Yujiko. He met him at some point. I don't know, maybe he met Yujiko when All For One was like in his 30s possibly or something like that. Just taking a guess. And then we have 2 left, and then one of them I'm assuming represents Aoyama. That could be maybe the most recent one to the goal point here. But then the one before that, which would be coming chronologically after Yujiko, maybe that's Nezu? Again, I don't need that to happen, but there's like a missing link here, I think. And whoever the second traitor is, I think accounts for that missing link here. Because All For One was getting information about All Might prior to season 1. Like, that's how the whole big USJ plan came to be. And after they failed, Shigaraki threw like that temper tantrum saying that like, and I'm paraphrasing, but like All Might wasn't as weak as you said he was going to be, All For One. And he's like, trust me, I know what's going on with him. So we're either led to believe that All For One was just guessing that All Might was going to be messed up after he had weakened him 6 years prior in their super death match. But on the other end, All Might and the heroes didn't have any information about All For One during that 6 years time, right? So there kind of has to be another traitor or mole or something. So it could be Nezu because of the reasons that I stated in my multiple videos I made about him before. Him possibly being like an experiment that Yujiko made at some point. But anyway, we're coming back to Aoyama being exposed in the forest with his parents because in the previous chapter, Hagakure of all people discovered this when she was like eavesdropping in the forest, and she very quickly got Izuku and brought him to the forest, and now everybody's all having their own little Mori episode here. But we're also getting like the Aoyama backstory and why he became the traitor. So apparently he was also born quirkless like Izuku, and his parents were like wealthy and they wanted to make their son happy any way they could, but they obviously couldn't buy him a quirk. So that's when, I guess, just through the grapevine, they heard about All For One and arranged a meeting with him, and All For One gave Aoyama the naval laser quirk, but of course it wasn't compatible with his body, as he was telling us the whole series. And they wound up buying him some top of the line equipment, you know, the belt that he has so they could control his quirk. But on the other end, he had to feed them information, such as the USJ and training camp information. And then recently he was told by All For One to like lure Izuku out and isolate him. So then it boils down to this super emotional moment where Aoyama's like, when I found out through the letter that you had left that you were also quirkless like me, I fell into the deepest pits of despair. And like he just snaps and fires off one of his lasers at Izuku, but Hagakure steps in and blocks it, letting the audience know that her body has the ability to warp light, which we knew about this beforehand, but she has such little time in the series that it's understandable if you forgot. But then she gets super emotional and she's like, you know, what you did could have killed us all, and you still have the nerve to sit in the same classroom as us and live in the same dorms as us. And she's like crying, but in this specific lighting at the right angle, we're able to see the outline of her face, and she looked like a girl. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know what any of us are really expecting. She's gonna look like a typical UA girl. But I guess her little distinguishing feature is that she has like a bang that comes down between her eyes. So yeah. And obviously this isn't a 1-for-1 of the panel. This is Lumum's coloring of it, so it's a little exaggerated, but this is pretty much it. So then Izuku constrains his parents and they all go back to UA and they start getting interrogated and everything, and everybody gets brought up to speed. But then Nezu, of all people, again, I don't need it to be true that he's the traitor, but acting pretty suspicious in this sequence, right? Especially when he's like, if all of you could please step away for some time. But then we get more of this emotional back and forth between Aoyama and Izuku, and I like that Izuku brings up like, you know, why did you save Bakugo and Tokuyami back in the training camp harbor? Because I thought that myself too. Like, since it was revealed that Aoyama was the traitor, why did he just shoot that beam, knocking the marbles out of Mr. Compress's mouth, you know? Well, it just comes back to him reluctantly being the traitor and him being super emotional. As we saw, he just fired off that laser against Izuku earlier on. But the chapter essentially ends with Izuku forgiving Aoyama, as he should, and I think the audience should forgive him as well. Obviously his slate shouldn't just be wiped clean. He should get like a smack on the wrist at the minimum. But I like how this played out, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the development for the rest of Class 1A, because I'm assuming that's the direction that the story is going to be heading here. Maybe that's going to be the penultimate arc here. Everybody gets their little ultimate wrap up possibly, but let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments, guys. And also, guys, please remember to download Gemstone Legends. I have the links in the description. I have the QR code. Don't forget, you can also win an iPhone 13 Pro.